The night was thick with an unsettling silence, as if the world itself held its breath, waiting for something sinister to unfold. Halloween had always been my favorite holiday. The excitement of costumes, the thrill of haunted houses, and the camaraderie of friends gathering for tricks and treats made it magical. But this year felt different, as if something malevolent had settled over the town, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. After a night filled with laughter and the flickering glow of jack-o'-lanterns, I made my way home. The streets were eerily empty, shadows slithering along the pavement like serpents. Each flickering streetlight cast grotesque shapes that danced at the edges of my vision. A cold breeze swept through the air, sending a shiver down my spine. It felt as though unseen eyes were watching from the darkness. As I approached my apartment building, the air grew heavier, thick with an energy I couldn't quite place. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, flipping the light switch, but the bulb sputtered and died, plunging me into oppressive darkness. Panic set in as I fumbled for my phone, its dim light barely piercing the gloom. That's when I heard it, a soft rustling behind me. My heart raced, and I spun around, but found nothing. The feeling of being watched crept over me, fingers of dread curling around my throat. I was not alone. Suddenly, the temperature dropped sharply, and a bone-chilling gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing my phone's light. In the suffocating blackness, a faint glow flickered to life in the corner, illuminating a figure that should not have been there. Its face was gaunt, skin stretched tightly over its skull, eyes sunken and filled with a darkness that seemed to swallow the light. It grinned, a grotesque smile that sliced through the gloom like a knife. My instincts screamed to flee, but terror rooted me in place. Without warning, the figure lunged, its claws extended. I barely managed to dodge, feeling the rush of cold air as it swiped at me, leaving a trail of icy dread. It moved with a speed that defied belief, its laughter echoing like shattered glass, filling the room with a sense of impending doom. I scrambled backward, my heart pounding, desperately searching for anything I could use as a weapon. In the kitchen, I grabbed a knife, the cold steel feeling like a lifeline in my trembling hands. I turned just in time to see the creature charging at me, its eyes glinting with malevolence. As it lunged, I slashed the knife through the air, connecting with its shoulder. It let out a bone-chilling screech, a sound that reverberated through the very walls. The figure staggered back, but quickly regained its composure. With a furious growl, it lunged again, and I felt its icy breath against my neck. Panic surged through me as I realized the knife had barely fazed it. I darted into the living room, trying to put distance between us, but the shadows twisted around me, warping into shapes that seemed to pulse with dark energy. As I searched for a way to escape, I caught a glimpse of the figure in the reflection of a broken mirror. Its face was a mask of fury, twisted and grotesque, dripping with dark ichor. I felt a rush of anger and fear, knowing I couldn't keep running. This thing wanted to haunt me, to claim my soul. With newfound determination, I turned to face it. "You want me? Come and get me," I yelled, my voice echoing in the oppressive silence. The figure's grin widened, revealing jagged teeth stained with blood, as it charged at me once more. I slashed the knife again, this time aiming for its heart. The blade sunk into its chest, but it only snarled in rage. In a flash, it swiped at me with claws that raked across my arm, tearing through flesh. I cried out in pain, stumbling backward, blood spilling onto the floor. The creature thrived on my fear, feeding off my anguish. Desperate, I fought through the pain and grabbed a nearby lamp. I swung it with all my strength, smashing it against the creature's head. It reeled back, momentarily stunned, and I took the opportunity to dart toward the door. I wrenched it open, but the figure recovered quickly, lunging for me just as I crossed the threshold. I sprinted down the hall, adrenaline pumping through my veins. Behind me, I could hear its footsteps, heavy and relentless. I burst into the stairwell, racing down the steps, praying I could outpace it. Each thud of my heart matched the pounding of its pursuit, the air thick with dread. As I reached the ground floor, I slammed through the exit door and burst into the cool night air. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to reach out for me. I glanced back, and there it was, the figure emerging from the building, its eyes glowing like embers in the darkness. I ran toward the nearest alley, desperate to find a place to hide. I ducked behind a dumpster, heart racing, straining to catch my breath. The world around me felt surreal, a distorted nightmare I couldn't escape. I peeked out, and my heart sank as I saw it prowling the street, its movements fluid and predatory. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the alley behind me. I turned, only to see another figure emerge from the shadows, a man, dressed in tattered clothes, his eyes wild with fear. "Run!" he shouted, but before I could react, the creature turned its attention toward us. It charged, and we both bolted down the alley, fear propelling us forward. The man glanced back, panic etched on his face. "We need to split up. It can't follow both of us." "No! We should stick together," I protested, but he was already veering off into another alley, the darkness swallowing him whole. I was left alone, the air crackling with tension as I felt the creature closing in. My heart raced as I sprinted down the narrow path, the stench of decay filling my nostrils. I ducked behind a stack of crates, trying to stifle my breath, praying the shadows would conceal me. The creature prowled the alley, sniffing the air, its eyes scanning the darkness. I could see the rage and hunger in its gaze, and I knew I was its prey. It paused, sensing my presence, and I held my breath, praying it wouldn't find me. The creature prowled the alley, sniffing the air, its eyes scanning the darkness. I could see the rage and hunger in its gaze, and I knew I was its prey. It paused, sensing my presence, and I held my breath, praying it wouldn't find me. But then, from the corner of my eye, I saw the man reappear. Fear etched on his face. He shouted a warning just as the creature turned. In an instant, it lunged at him, its claws tearing into his flesh. He screamed, a sound that chilled my blood, and I felt a wave of horror wash over me. I couldn't just stand there. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I lunged forward, knife in hand. I thrust it into the creature's side as it tore into the man, and the creature screeched, its focus shifting from him to me. But my attack had cost me. The creature spun around, its claws raking across my arm, and I cried out in agony. Blood poured from my wounds, staining the ground beneath me. I stumbled back, feeling the weight of despair settle in. The man lay on the ground, gasping for breath as the creature turned its full attention back to him. In that moment, I realized there was no escape. We were both trapped in this hell, and the creature was determined to haunt us. As I watched, the creature lunged again, tearing into the man's throat. I felt a sickening sense of helplessness as he struggled, his life fading before my eyes. I had to do something. In a burst of desperation, I grabbed a nearby metal pipe from the ground. With a primal scream, I charged the creature. Swinging the pipe with all my might, it connected with a sickening thud, and the creature staggered, but it wasn't finished. The figure reared back, its eyes filled with a fury that burned like fire. I braced myself as it charged once more. I had to end this haunting. With one last swing, I struck its head, and it let out a final, horrific wail before crumpling to the ground, its form dissolving into shadows. I stood there, panting, the night air heavy with the scent of blood and smoke. The adrenaline faded, leaving only the crushing weight of loss and terror. I looked down at the man, his lifeless body lying in the alley. I had fought, but the cost had been devastating. Halloween had transformed from a night of fun into a waking nightmare. As I stumbled away, I knew that while I had survived the darkness, it had left its mark, one that would haunt me forever. The shadows lingered behind me, watching, waiting, reminding me that the fight might be over, but the horror would never truly end. The memory of that night haunted me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the creature hadn't truly been defeated. My once vibrant apartment felt like a tomb, suffocating and cold. Every creak of the floorboards sent chills down my spine, and every flicker of light made my heart race.